What do you think the outcome of something like this will be, the massive California wildfires that are going on right now?
Yeah, well, a lot to unpackage there. So I think it's worth starting with the regulatory, because that's going to build into what the answer is. In some sense, you were not lucky to have your house burned down, but lucky to have the rebuilding process happen in Ventura, because even though Ventura is bad, Los Angeles and the Palisades is going to be way worse. I mean, there are now rumors, we don't know if they're true, circulating about potential attempts to rezone, and we can talk about that in the future, rezoning to more multifamily for the Palisades. We'll talk about that. But I do believe that between now and the long-term future, it'll be probably 5 years out, the Palisades will probably be one of the most beautiful places again, just like it was when you had the Palisades Village, which actually survived this fire. All of that will be rebuilt. All the homes, instead of being 60s, 70s, 80s homes, will be brand new homes. All the infrastructure will be brand new, and hopefully we'll be able to learn from the mistakes that helped contribute to this fire and prevent those in the future. But that's where we get into that regulation side, where I don't know if California can pull it off and prevent it again. Because let's talk about that Thomas fire and those fire hydrants not working. Why is it that in 2017, the state of California gets a heads up that, hey, when you have properties at elevation on a hillside, which we have a lot of hillside in California, fire hydrants might stop working. They might stop working because you don't have adequate water supply, or because the power goes off and the pumps stop working to pump water to those fire hydrants. Why is it that that 2017 lesson, where hydrants were going dry, didn't teach California that, oh my gosh, we should make sure hydrants never go dry again? If that could have been prevented for the Palisades fire and we actually would have had hydrants, maybe fewer homes would have been lost. Maybe fewer people would have died. I think we're at 10 deaths, but we expect that number to rise substantially. I mean, you just can't find all the people who have died yet, which is horrible. So that's where, in order to know where we go in the future and to sort of answer your question, it comes down to, what do you think Newsom can do? And what do you think the supermajority of Democrats can do in California? Well, I think the best answer is what they have been able to do over the last 10 years. Well, 10 years, we passed SB, I believe it was 148 or 149, to fund about $7.5 billion for 6 new reservoirs in California, for water reservoirs. So we'd have enough water to keep hydrants full and keep tanks full. As of 2021, not a single dime was spent on actually building them. And over the last 3 years, we finally gotten to where we have engineering approvals to build one of the reservoirs, and they might start construction in 2026 on it, and maybe it'll be done by 2032. So if you look at that, the answer to your question of what do I think will be done is more 2014, you funded it, to 2032, it's built, 18-year projects to maybe get more water and things done better. Now, I don't think it'll be that bad for people rebuilding their homes, but the point is, will California ever get around to fixing regulation, to fixing how our infrastructure is handled, preventing hydrants from going dry and reservoirs from emptying out? It's going to take a massive political shift away from this supermajority of Democrats that we have right now in this current leadership. I'm not saying Democrats are bad. I'm not saying Republicans are good. I'm just saying that the current people that are in office all need to go because they've all failed California.
Some of that seems like a bit of a policy issue, that it takes that long to get something done. My worry is it's a bit like the LA freeways, where they build just enough for demand. So they'll anticipate demand 10 years from now, but it takes 20 years to get done. And then by the time it's done and they expand the freeways, it's still too small because the population has outpaced it. Could it be the same way with something like this, where they're anticipating something, but it's not going to be enough given that the fires are getting worse?
Well, the problem is what's preventing these things from getting done right now, and a lot of that has to do with CEQA, the California Environmental Equality Act. Now, Reagan passed this in 1970, which is really interesting because Reagan was deemed to be a hero that people loved. I mean, I think he got the most electoral votes when he ran for president ever against Jimmy Carter. He had over 450 electoral votes, which is a crazy landslide. People say Trump won with a landslide in the low 300s of electoral votes, I think it was. But that was a landslide back then in 1980, and he was the governor of California first. But anyway, I think CEQA is a disaster because it allows anybody with any beneficial claim, either pro or con, to sue any developer of solar infrastructure, housing infrastructure, fire infrastructure, water infrastructure, schooling infrastructure, anything, transportation infrastructure, anything. You could sue and basically tie up any project in court until it's litigated. which, let's put it this way. Right now, in certain counties, if you evict somebody, you win, okay? You slam dunk an eviction against a tenant. You could sit in court waiting for your eviction notice, basically, to get signed off on for months because the courts are so backlogged. So you could win, the tenant is still there, but the courts sit on it for months, signing the final order because they're so backlogged. Okay, so that's for what should be a slam dunk case, an eviction, which is supposed to take 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Turns into 3 months, 4 months because they're so backlogged. Now try that with environmental litigation where you have experts from all angles on, fish, on wildlife, on salmon, on trout, on the Delta smelt, on noise, on air pollution, on air quality, on environmental rights, on that person's legacy shed that's historic. All of that comes into play. Now, Newsom and Democrats signed a law, again, it was either SB 149 or 148, one of those, that allows the CEQA litigation process to be shortened to no more than 270 days, only for projects that Newsom signs off on. So now what you've actually done is you've made the governor of California even more powerful, where he's control of the whole Democratic legislature. And now his signature can approve which projects get the shortcut for CEQA. So the amount of power that the Democratic machine has, don't even get me started with the media control they have out here, but the power that they have is unmatched. They are the most powerful political body, I would argue, in the world, because there's no counterbalancing force. And it's ironic, and I'll stop talking for a moment, but it's ironic that now you have this media talk about Democrats saying, well, it's if Republicans weren't standing in the way of climate change, we could have done something. There is no Republican standing in your way in California because you have a supermajority of votes in the legislature. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't, have that problem when he was governor as a Republican in California. Supermajority means literally a Republican can't do anything. They've got over 70% of the legislature. You've got the Democratic governor. So Democrats are 100% and entirely at fault for whatever happens in the political process because there is nothing a Republican can do to balance it out in California.